Is that Peter Cottontail? No, it's Yvonne Douglas. Today on Happy Cooking with Yvonne Douglas, we're gonna make a delicious Easter dinner. It's pork medallions with an apple cream sauce and some Brussels sprouts with Parmesan cheese. Oh my gosh, you're gonna love it. So stay tuned, let's hop to it. Okay, so let's take a look at our ingredients that we're going to need to make our Easter dinner. Our pork medallions with an apple cream sauce and some garden spiral pasta and also Brussels sprouts. All right, so what we're gonna need first, let's start with the pork. You're going to need some pork chops. These are center cut. What we're gonna do is we're actually going to get a meat mallet. And if you don't have one, I highly suggest you have one for kitchen tool. And we're going to bang our pork chop and make it approximately 1/2 inch thick. And we're gonna trim off the fat and we're going to season it. And we're gonna season it with salt and pepper, onion powder, garlic powder. And this is a very important thing. I use this on my chicken too. If you watch my other videos, especially the Chinese fried rice video. On my chicken, I always put these spices on there. I always put Hungarian paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, salt, and pepper. This brand though, it makes a difference which brand you buy. And this brand is called Szeged. It's Szeged. This is the brand my mom always used, and I can get this at Central Market here in Texas in the Dallas Metroplex area. So Central Market will carry this. If you go to Tom Thumb or another grocery store, they don't carry it. So if you're interested in this paprika, then you would have to go to Central Market. Another thing we're going to need is 1/3 cup chopped white onion. We're going to need 1 container of 8-ounce sour cream. We're gonna need 1 apple. This is a Granny Smith apple, and this is thinly sliced. You want them very thin. And we're going to need a little red onion. The red onion is really for garnish, so just a little bit of that. We need some sprigs of chives that you're going to chop very small. And we're gonna add some chives on top too, that's another garnish, along with some dried sage leaves. That's going to look really pretty and add a really nice flavor. We also need some dried sage. This is, I believe we need 1/4 teaspoon of this that we're going to be using. And then for our Brussels sprouts, of course you're going to need Brussels sprouts. And you'll cook those up, and when we put them in a pan, we're gonna put them in butter, and then I'm gonna add some Italian breadcrumbs to it and some Parmesan cheese. It's gonna be so good. Oh, and we also need 1 cup of apple juice. So any apple juice you really want to use. And of course, our garden spiral noodles, because we are gonna have this with some pasta. All right, so I think that's about it. These are our ingredients that we're going to use, so let's get cooking. Okay, so we're back, and I'm gonna have some pork chops here that I'm gonna show you what we're going to do. We're gonna first trim the fat off of it, and then we're going to get some handy wrap and put some handy wrap over it, and then we're going to bang it with our meat mallet. Okay, so here we go. We definitely make sure that in your kitchen that you have really sharp knives. It's very important that your knives are really sharp, and especially when you cut onions. It was once said that the sharper the knife, the less you cry. So that's something you may want to take in consideration too. And let me trim this fat off here. These look really good actually. There's not that much fat on it. Very little. And these are pretty thick, so I'm gonna be using that mallet a lot, I can tell. Remember, pork medallions, you want them to be small. You want them to be at least a ½ inch thick, which is not that thick really, but it really affects the flavor, affects the whole taste of the dish. People sometimes don't realize that. All right, so I think I have most of the fat off. I'm also cutting them in half. I want them to be about this size, if you can see that. And now I'm going to get some handy wrap. And I am going to get my mallet. I'm just gonna bang it. Okay, so that's approximately, if you want to take a look right here, approximately ½ inch thick. And of course that is way too big. See how much bigger they get when you bang them? So I'm going to cut that in half too. So now I have these little pork medallions, and when you cook them up, they'll definitely shrink too. All right, so that's one, and I have about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more to go. So we'll see you back in just a second. Okay, so we're back. So now we're going to season our pork. And as you can see, I used my meat mallet, and they are approximately ½ inch thick. And then you cut them kind of small. I mean, this is approximately, I don't know, 3 inches or so. And then I'm going to season them. So what am I gonna season them with? I'm gonna season them with some salt and pepper, and I'm gonna do both sides. We're also going to use some garlic powder, both sides, onion powder, both sides, and then Hungarian paprika. It's that red paprika. And that's how you're going to season them. All right, so I have approximately 8 more to do. So we'll be back. Okay, so we're gonna start to cook our pork, and I'm going to get my skillet and spray it with some non-stick pan spray. I'm just gonna spray the bottom. Put that on a medium flame. This is purely olive oil. And then when this heats up, I'm going to add my pork. And the pork shouldn't take that long to cook. You basically want to make sure that it is brown, not too brown, on both sides. And it should take only like maybe 5 minutes or so. It really shouldn't take that long. And because they are very thin. And then we're going to continue working on our sauce when we take it out. So that's gonna be really good. I can't wait to show you that. All right, so this pan looks like it's pretty hot. Let me get my tongs. Remember those indispensable cooking tool. That indispensable cooking tool is super important that you have that. All right, so let me get my pork. And the pan should be just a little bit hotter, so I'm just gonna wait just a little bit more. And you know, thinking about Easter, my mom always, she would make, some years she would make turkey, sometimes it would be ham. But I decided to do pork this year, to do something a little bit different with that apple cream sauce, and it's gonna go so well with our apple strudel that we're gonna have for dessert. And in next week's segment, you're going to see how we're going to make that apple strudel. And it's gonna be a really nice, fun Easter celebration. So let me get the rest of these little pork medallions. And if you notice, while this is going to start to cook, I'm already cooking my Brussels sprouts, and they are in here. I think they're almost done. The way you always test if a Brussels sprout is done is just use a fork, and if you can poke a fork through it and it's tender, then you know they're done. So let me see here. All right, let me get a fork and test my Brussels sprouts. My pasta, my garden spiral noodles are pretty much done. These only take maybe 8 minutes to cook, but you always want to try one. So I'm gonna take one out. Ah, I just dropped it, oh no. All right, that was kind of bad. All right, all right, let me get another one. It's okay. All right. Yeah, now the pasta's done. Okay. And you want to always make sure that you have a colander in the sink ready to go. One thing I always do too is put on a little cool water, run it so that hot steam doesn't go down the drain, and it kind of cools things off a little bit. So let me do that really quick. Okay, so my pasta is done. All right, I'm gonna cook up my pork. And let's see, it's already brown on one side, so I'm gonna flip them over. See, the pork really doesn't take that long to cook. And I'm gonna flip this over. And one thing that, even that I have the PAM, the non-stick cooking spray, I am going to add just a little bit of water. Just a little bit. Okay. It's going to make a nice little, almost like a gravy, but not, just kind of gets those juices a little bit, you know. And just like that. And then I'm going to cook that for just about a couple more minutes. And then we'll be back. Stay tuned. Okay, so let's see what we've done so far. Well, our pork is finished. It's all cooked. We transferred it to a plate, and our Brussels sprouts is done too. We're gonna make our Brussels sprouts, and our pasta is done. So now all we have to do is make that delicious apple cream sauce. All right, so here we go. I'm gonna put on the skillet, and this is the same skillet that the pork was cooking in. I have 1/3 of a cup of onions. And let me just get out my wooden fork. And I'm gonna add just a little bit of water to the pan a little bit. All right, see the steam coming up a little bit. I'm gonna add my onions. Okay, and what I love is kind of like the drippings that are from the pork. So it has a little bit of that paprika, all those spices that we seasoned our pork in. And now these onions are going to pick those up too. And I'm just going to kind of stir this around in my pan. And then we're also going to need to add our apple slices. Remember, this is 1 apple that is very thinly sliced. I'm going to add that to my pan. Just layer all the whole bottom with those apples. And you probably want to keep a couple of extra off to the side. I put these off to the side. It even has the skin on there because it's going to be part of that garnish. It's going to look really pretty when it's all done. All right, and then I want to add my 1 cup of apple juice. And I'm going to stir that. Okay, hopefully you can see that. And just stir that up. Looks so good. Let me put this over here for now. I'm going to get my salt and my dried sage. Now my dried sage is 1/4 of a teaspoon. So I'm just gonna get my dried sage, make sure it's 1/4 of a teaspoon, add that to that. And I'm also going to get my, I'm just gonna get my salt and pepper. And I'm just gonna put very little salt, just a little bit. And some pepper in there, just a little bit of that. I'm going to get my fork. sauce is called Happy Cooking. And so we are going to stir that up, and I'm going to get the cover, and I'm going to cover it up, and then it's going to cook for approximately just 5 minutes or so. So let me get the cover. Perfect. All right, so that's going to cook for about 5 minutes, and then we will be back. Bye-bye. Okay, so while my onions and my apples are cooking in the skillet over here, I have another skillet, and I'm melting some butter here. This is actually, I think, less than 1/4 cup of butter. And what we're going to do is going to put our Brussels sprouts in there. And what I like to do is I add Italian breadcrumbs. After the butter is melted, and this butter is almost melted, we're going to add our Italian breadcrumbs to the bottom, just like this. Just go like that at the bottom. And then I'm going to add my garlic powder to it. I'm going to add my salt and pepper, just a little bit of salt, and my pepper. And then I add my cooked Brussels sprouts. And then I toss, just like this. I let those Brussels sprouts soak up all that butter and the breadcrumbs, and it looks so good. All right, awesome. And that's all it is. Isn't that simple? That is so simple, and it tastes really good. And then you also want to add, when it's pretty much all covered and everything, your Parmesan cheese. So we're going to sprinkle it with Parmesan cheese. I'm going to leave a little bit, so when I prepare my plate, we'll have a little bit more Parmesan cheese on there. Basically, that is it. I don't know if you can see that, but it is so good, and it tastes fantastic. All right, so now we're going to put our apple cream sauce together. Stay tuned. Okay, so let me check to see if my onions are tender, and they look pretty good. I'm gonna move the cover over here. Take a look. Yes, it looks really good. The apples. Oh my gosh, it smells so good, guys. Oh, you should smell this. Oh, it smells really good. All right. So now I'm going to get my sour cream. Now what I already did was, you'll need approximately 2 tablespoons of flour, and then you mix that with your 8 ounce sour cream. Your 8 ounce container of sour cream. So you just kind of stir it all together. And then I'm going to add that. This is that cream sauce that we're all going to love. It tastes really good. This is actually one of my favorite recipes I used to make, and I just thought it would be really nice to make for Easter. I'm gonna get my whisk, important cooking tool, and I'm just going to kind of incorporate the sour cream with the apples and the apples juice. And I'm going to put up the flame a little bit. Now you want your sauce to be thick, so once it starts getting bubbly, then you want to lower it, and then you'll cook it for about 1 more minute. But oh my gosh, this looks so good. And sometimes what I like to do too, the recipe calls for 1 cup of apple juice, but sometimes I like adding a little bit more, especially if you like a lot of sauce. So you may want to, but I think for this amount it should be fine. But if you want to make a little bit more sauce, just increase all those ingredients just by a little bit, and then you'll have more sauce. Okay, let me get my wooden spoon now. Now it's bubbling, so I'm going to lower and let this, oh my gosh, let me bring the camera so you can see this. This is fantastic. All right, take a look at this, guys. Look, oh my gosh, look at that sauce. Look at that cream sauce. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I'm gonna put it on a simmer and I'm gonna let that cook for about 1 more minute, okay? And then we'll be back and then we're gonna arrange our plate and it's gonna look so good. Stay tuned. Okay, so we're finally gonna put our dish together and assemble it. So the very first thing I wanna do is get the plate that I'm going to serve for Easter. And this is actually a German plate. It was passed down to me by my parents, and it's a Hutchenreuter plate. And I love it because it's very Easter. It has these pink and yellow flowers and green leaves on it. So it just says springtime and Easter to me. But anyway, I'm gonna get some pasta. I get my spiral noodles. And I'm going to add my pork medallions on top. I'm just gonna lay it on top. Just like that. And I'm going to add my apple cream sauce. Oh my gosh, this looks so good. Oh wow. And then I'm gonna add some Brussels sprouts. Just a couple here and there. That looks fantastic. And now I'm going to add some red onions on top. Red onions and some chives. A little sprig of sage. Oh my gosh, that looks so good. And a couple of apple slices just for garnish. And look what a beautiful plate this is. Let me bring it to the camera. Oh my gosh, look at that. So good. And for the taste test, gosh, I just can't wait. Just can't wait for Easter. Going to get a little bit of the pork. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So good, guys. A perfect Easter dinner. Stay tuned. Next week we're gonna have our apple strudel segment, how to bake an apple strudel, and also a tablescape that you will not want to miss. It is so cute. It's all about Easter. So happy cooking. Bye-bye. Next time on Happy Cooking with Yvonne Douglas. Yvonne Douglas will show us how to turn some Granny Smith apples into the most delicious apple strudel. So stay tuned.